Welcome to Sonoran Stories with Admissions, an official podcast of Sonoran University of Health Sciences. I'm your host, Courtney, and I'm so glad that you're here. On this podcast, we explore the real journeys, honest insight, and inspiring voices that make our community so unique. If you're curious about a future in naturopathic medicine, clinical nutrition, integrative health, this is the place for you. Let's jump into today's episode. Today, we're sitting down with one of our current ND students to talk about what the journey actually looks like. From discovering naturopathic medicine to starting the program and navigating that first year. So Avery, thank you for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about your background and what originally led you towards naturopathic medicine.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm from Kansas. So the only reason I'm out here in Arizona is for this program. I felt passionately enough about starting this, that this was my passion, that I was willing to just pick up and move out here all by myself. And thus far, it's been one of the best choices I've ever made. So being from Kansas, there really isn't a lot of exposure to naturopathic doctors. So it was a lot of self-discovery and contemplation and just trying to figure out where I was meant to land. I went to university in Kansas and studied on the pre-med track. I contemplated being a PA or going to chiropractic school, but wasn't exactly sure. Nothing felt completely right to me. I always knew that I cared deeply about people. Yeah. I think they're the most interesting things in the world. And from their psychology to the way their body works to the way that we interact with each other, I think it's just completely fascinating. And so those are my passions. And it wasn't until my dad died when I was 19 suddenly of a cardiovascular event. He was the principal. He just went to school one day and died. And I was in school with my very best friend. And I got the phone call from my sister of like, you need to come home. Something like you need to get here as quick as possible. And I just knew that something terrible had happened. Yeah. Unfortunately, cardiovascular disease is not a unique thing in my family. And again, at the time I was 19 years old, it kind of planted the seed of, I don't want that to be me. And intuitively with my mom, who was always very into nutrition, it was always integrated into our lives growing up. I knew that the things that would impact me in my 50s and my 60s, even in my 40s for cardiovascular disease markers were starting now. Yeah. And like the habits that I'm building as my unique own person, like those things matter. As a 19-year-old girl worried about my heart health, it really all is preventative. And another seed planted of the preventative aspect of healthcare isn't necessarily well integrated into our current access to health. Right. And that was where my passion began, along with just my own curiosity in our emotional world and its relation to our physical world. I got into yoga in undergrad and started teaching through my university. And that just was another passion of, oh my gosh, I love this connection. And this is such a profound practice that I think everyone should learn. We just are so unaware of the way that our environment and our own self-talk impacts us.
So what moment in your life made you start questioning the conventional approach to health and kind of searching for something different? You were still interested in various paths of medicine, but you didn't know about the ND yet.
I didn't. I really didn't. And that's when I think my search for finding where I fit really ramped up. And there was a lot of questioning and a lot of relying on my support systems, my best friend, my mom, my sisters, relying on them and their guidance to help me figure out where am I supposed to be in this world that I didn't even know that there was a name for. It was more just the feeling lost that there wasn't a place for what I knew I wanted to do, the prevention of it. I don't know if I ever necessarily questioned conventional medicine. I still have a great appreciation for the intervention and the life-saving measures and the level of education. People in the MD-DO world, they're very necessary for a functioning society. There was just this gap that was missing the beforehand. And I was like, that's where I want to be. I want to be the one educating about their lifestyle. I want to be the one holding people's hands through these huge changes and preventing these terrible events. And the current system that we have set up, I don't think it's the fault of the doctors or the PAs or the nurse practitioners, anyone in the system. I think it's just we need another part of the problem to be addressed, which is the before we're into those kind of irreversible chronic diseases. Not that I think chronic disease can't be reversed in some cases, but we're not giving it the effort in the current system.
And obviously they can all work together. They can all collaborate.
I think it's just massive amounts of misinformation about what we learn and the amount of education and clinical training that we have that's just so misunderstood. If we could take the politics or the misinformation out of the picture, this would be a pretty unifying effort.
Definitely.
And especially if other practitioners could know it's adding to the picture, adding to the quality of life for people, lowering the cost of healthcare.
Yeah.
And preventing those expensive high intervention forces that are needed when disease is ignored for years before anything is done about it.
Exactly.
So there was like a singular incident that I had. My best friend Morgan, I was living with her in college, and she was one of the key people kind of helping me explore where I landed because she knew me better than anyone else. And she was also pre-med with me. So we were in all the same classes. We understood each other very well. She knew that I was still trying to figure out where I belonged. And is one day we were sitting down at the kitchen table, just like exploring all the options. And she actually was the one that found it online. And we were reading about naturopathic doctors, a school in Arizona. Like, this is exactly what you want. Like treating the root cause, focusing on the mental emotional connection, prevention, like dietary and lifestyle interventions before you jump to pharmaceuticals, like having this whole array of methods to intervene in order to prevent. And there's no denying it that this is just what I have to do. It was so profound. And now she is in medical school in Kansas and we talk all the time, and she's still my best girl and I love her. And she really was probably one of the more influential people in where I am today.
That's cool. That's cool. Thanks, Morgan.
Yeah, I know. I love her. Shout out, Morgan.
So a lot of our listeners are probably right at that stage of exploring school and honestly wondering what the process is like. So coming from a current student, you're in Q10 right now.
My third year.
Yeah. Wow. Crazy, right? Does it feel like it went by fast? And also very slow.
Fast and slow. I feel like I've aged like maybe 15 years.
Oh, really?
Then I'm like, I blinked and that went by.
Yeah.
It's this weird time where time in medical school just is like no other. Everything, the weeks fly by and it feels like you hardly can catch your breath. But then it's like, wow, I've grown so much as a person in such a short amount of time. Yeah. So it's an interesting combination.
That's so cool. Let's start at the beginning. So what was your application journey like? What was that process like for you?
And I do just want to say I'm really happy that we are doing this. And I think this is such a necessary platform to have, because when I was looking into what is this school like? What is the application? What should I expect? There wasn't a lot of resources out there online. I think there was one girl on YouTube and I was just watching all of her content. So this will be very helpful. I wish I would have had someone lay it out for me. So the application process is surprisingly straightforward. It's been like 3.5 years now since I did it, but I remember it being very straightforward, and you'll submit it all online. They'll give you a time frame and you have a priority deadline where you're available to be selected for some more scholarships. Yeah. And then,
But you relocated. And I think that there's mass majority of our student body that are coming from somewhere other than Arizona. So what was that like? Did you come here just totally by yourself, exploring it? How much time would you recommend a prospective student, a listening student, to give themselves?
Ideally, if you were knowing that you wanted to do this thinking of a traditional student, if you were to know that this is what you want to do by the end of your second year, I think that would give you ample time. You do not need this much time. But in the ideal case scenario, you would kind of be getting the idea that this is what you're leaning towards by the end of your sophomore year, I would think, because then that gives you enough time to make your schedule to make sure that you're hitting those prerequisites without taking classes that maybe you don't need to take or taking not the ideal class. So you can more hone in your schedule to what you need to enter into the program. But I knew that I wanted to do this by the end of my sophomore year, actually. So that was really helpful. And so then I applied before actually touring the school. So I applied, got all of my things in, even did my interview without actually seeing the school. And It was about 3 years ago today. But yeah, I came here for the first time. Morgan and I flew out together for our spring break, and I toured the school for the first time and paid my deposit. So she walked through everything with me. We were given a tour by another student ambassador. Now I'm a student ambassador. I do the same thing for people, but that day was so pivotal.
So cool.
Of just walking through the medicinal garden. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I could see myself studying here, and I can see myself integrating into this community. And I loved the research center and just the emphasis on conducting quality research. Out of here, I wanted to be a part of that. I was pretty sure of myself beforehand, but then coming here, seeing it, seeing the community, and just the positive energy that was radiating off of it, I was like, okay, let's sign my deposit. I'm doing it.
So cool.
It was a fun time.
Okay, so let's talk about the reality of starting the program. Honest and truth, what was it like for you walking into your first quarter here?
I feel like I didn't exactly know what to expect rigor-wise. That was one thing that I couldn't quite get a handle on, of how hard is this going to be? And you really don't know till you jump in. And thankfully, I think I was a bit naive, because I think if I would have known the extent, I would have maybe psyched myself out. I would have been more nervous rather than just showing up and doing what's in front of you. I think that that's the best way to do it. The faculty and the way the program is set up, they're going to have you equipped with everything you need. Nothing is going to be unmanageable without a decent amount of effort. You have to show up with the effort part, but the program is set up to support you through the changes.
Love that.
I showed up, didn't really know what to expect, and then quickly got my study group together and kind of hit the road running, and it feels like it didn't really stop for 2 years. So again, I'm kind of glad that I was just showing up and ready to do whatever was in front of me, because I had the energy and the motivation to just buckle down and get through those first 2 years, which can be kind of intense, but very rewarding and interesting. And if this is your place, the passion will drive you through kind of the rigor of it.
Yeah, I love that. That's really encouraging for, future students to hear. What surprised you the most about your first year?
I don't think I've ever worked as hard as I did in that first year. It was a lot of trial and error, of figuring out what kind of student I was, figuring out what worked for me, studying wise, and just kind of pushing the boundaries of what I thought I was capable of. Our minds are so amazing that when things feel impossible, they're not. And our brains are so adaptable. It's just incredible to see in real time how much smarter you're getting, how much capability you have to learn change within just the matter of a few months. And I remember it was my anatomy professor in the first year. He told us this before an exam that people were very stressed out about, and it stuck with me. And I think it's so profound and true. He was like, if you get to the point you feel so confused where nothing is making sense, and it's pretty discouraging because this is often after 10 hours of studying, things just are getting more confused than they ever were. Don't get lost right there, because the moment that you are the most confused is when you're about to turn a page and understand it more than you ever did before. You have to get so confused and learn to question your understanding, because in order to question something, you have to know something. It's very easy to not question anything when you don't know anything. It's the little bit more you know, you realize you don't have the whole picture, things don't make sense. Push through at that point, and you'll be unstoppable. Don't be deterred by being confused. Don't be deterred by it being hard, because you'll get there.
Yeah, that's really good advice. It's kind of like that same thing that you're taught, especially in sports, that failure is a good thing. You have to fail to know success. You have to fail in order to know what doesn't work.
And if you failed at something, that's better than most people who never tried anything outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah. What classes or experiences early on made you feel like, yeah, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be?
I think there's a couple different ways that I could look at that. Being in a community of like-minded people, I think, is pretty encouraging. You get all these people together and you just get each other, and you have that supportive community that they're going to be the ones to, hey, you've been studying a lot. Let's go for a hike. Are you taking care of yourself?
Yeah.
You've been drinking enough water and sleeping, and having the same priorities in that way of, yes, we are working so hard towards our educational accomplishments, but you're a person. You need to take care of yourself. You need to nourish yourself so that you can be your best. I mean, I think everyone knows that. and to some extent, but to actually have other people really holding themselves accountable to be living that, I think is a pretty profound thing and resonates of like, these are people who think the same way as me and we're doing this and we're going to make changes in people's lives and changes in each other's lives. In the educational front, so I was raised by 2 educators. So I love learning. So really just being in a space where curiosity and questioning things is welcomed and thoroughly understanding how the body works at the baseline. I love physiology and I love anatomy. So the first 2 years are really heavy on that, even biochemistry as well. Very heavy in those fronts. And I just love to understand.
When was it like, oh my gosh, Avery, this is exactly what you've wanted?
I would say in those first 2 years, because it's so heavy in the books, you're saving grace to keep you looking towards the future. One is getting involved in the clubs and the communities that are offered to you because they'll kind of have you see the more applicable side of it, things. But also, I think what was most encouraging for me was looking at my professors, especially the adjunct professors that were having patients outside of teaching. They were just so inspiring to me. Like Dr. Panaza, he taught our anatomy cadaver, and I'd see him once, twice a week and be like, oh my gosh, this man is just so knowledgeable. And anything I come and ask him a random question about, he has the answer. And I remember one day I was like, I wish I could be just like him. And then wait, I can be a Dr. Panaza or a Dr. Tately. And in my mind, there's like, those are the coolest people. I want to be just like them. And
you're doing it.
And I'm doing it. So I hope I can be as great as them. But those keep me going.
So you touched on a lot of the reality of the workload, of the time load.
I think that's really misunderstood.
Yeah. How'd you adjust?
I think when I went in, I was just kind of like, you have to get it done. You have to buckle down. You have to lean on your people that you're studying with. I lived with other girls in the program and they were great at holding me accountable of, we got to collaborate a bit. We got to remind each other of when, like, the schedule that we needed to keep up with, and then also keep each other on the timeline of, do you want to get together and review anatomy on this day? And we'll rapid fire questions each other and challenge each other's understanding. And I think having a community that, one, isn't afraid to challenge you, and finding people that align with the way that you study, I think is super pivotal. So, and also the school does a great job of having TAs and study resources available. And I'm less of a resource girl and more of I need to talk about things. I need you to question me and I need to be able to move it from my mind to my mouth. And that's how I solidify things. So I worked better in like a group setting, but some people work really well with ample resources and seeing things in different ways, which is provided by the school in a lot of different ways through TAs and study classes, extra study classes.
I guess in comparison to the other examples you've had in your life, going through your undergrad, how do you feel that Sonoran manages the uniqueness of each individual student's needs when it comes to learning styles, study styles? How do you feel that they support that?
I think by having a layered approach of where you have the in-class lecture and then also having all of that information available in the online Canvas access, so you can look at it in the same format multiple times. But then another layer with the TAs meeting once a week. So you not only have the class in person, you can study those notes, you can study those PowerPoints, you can go to a review class where you're actually taught it over again in a different format by a different person with the time to kind of slow down on different topics and explain those again. And then oftentimes the TAs will give practice questions, exercises to do. So I think that encompasses a pretty well-rounded approach.
Caters to a lot of different types of people. Like I need to be hands-on versus those that are in silence and quiet. Just give me the stuff and I'll go over to myself. Yeah.
And then being able to pair it with a hands-on tactile learning as well, because we have the anatomy cadaver lab and then also the dry lab as well. So honing it on anatomy, if you're a person that needs to see it and talk through things, you have the dry lab that you can be in whenever during school hours, and you can go in there on the weekends. Everyone has their own way. And for me to solidify something, I need to be able to teach it to someone. Yeah. For another person, they need it to be re-explained to them in a different way. Another person, I need to see it and touch it and feel it and make it a physical thing. Sonoran did a great job of preparing us in this first couple of years.
Yeah. So you can kind of safely say that Sonoran's not going to let you fail. The only way you're going to fail is if you quit.
Yeah. And like I was saying, I have my best friend in an MD program, and then another one of my best friends in a DO program, and another one of my good friends from college who's in a PA program. So I've learned a little bit about different teaching techniques at different schools, and it really varies a lot.
Yeah.
Just in the way that we're given exams and assessments, and the way that we're taught in different blocks versus not. And I think that Sonoran does a great job. We're actually being taught in class. And we have a close enough knit community that you can have relationships with your professor. You can ask questions real time in lecture and get an explanation, knowing that some educations you get the information, but then you need to use supplemental resources to learn the full picture. But I felt like I had access to my professors where they could give me the whole picture right then and there. And it could be a conversation and a back and forth because we had the class sizes that can accommodate more of that intimate setting.
Definitely. And I mean, I think it's probably very unique in a number of senses, but primarily the fact that for Sonoran University, we're really the only university that focuses 100% on campus on one degree, producing the best naturopathic doctors in the world. That's our mission, and that's what we're doing here. And because everybody here on campus is supporting that mission and that one program, you really don't have any distractions or toxic, misinformed opinions. Everybody's here to support you, to support the mission, and to support more access to this medicine. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And oh my goodness, it is so shocking once you step outside of this supportive, well-informed circle that we're inside of. Once you step out of it, it's like, oh my goodness, we need to get out there into the communities and be educating people on what we're doing because we are so impactful and create such amazing doctors. I've been trying to be more involved in the politics and legislation in Kansas. And there was recently a hearing for expanding our scope and including prescribing rights, which we've had in Arizona for decades and very safely with low malpractice rates because it's not a risk to patients.
Right.
People think it is with a misinformed idea of what we're doing, but we're highly trained in pharmacology. We go through as much pharmacology as MD and DO programs. We go through more than PAs, more than nurse practitioners, more than dentists even. And listening into kind of what's happening on the legislative side of things, it is just truly a lack of understanding what we do and what our place is in our training that it's not progressing. So we need more naturopathic doctors out there collaborating, networking. Working with other professionals.
Networking with other professionals, building the bridge, building the relationship. I think the motivation should always be helping people heal, however they come to you, in whatever state they come to you in. And obviously, your education is explaining the importance of collaboration to you, right? Where, okay, that's not in your wheelhouse. That's something that's not particularly in an ND's scope.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely. And being very well informed on the standard of care. So not only are we offering the standard of care, but we're saying, and if this doesn't fit you exactly and it's safe and indicated, here are all these other options that we can give you.
Yeah.
I think it's dropping that us versus them dialogue that I think happens in a lot of different ways from a lot of different perspectives. I think dropping that is where we actually move forward and you're able to hear and be open to understanding things that you don't know.
Did you have that opportunity when you were working with the admissions department to kind of navigate and really solidify, this is it for me?
Well, I think are perfectly placed in the roles that they have. And I almost thought maybe they could be propaganda. No way people are that nice and kind and open and helpful. But then I got here and it's like, okay, yes, they're perfectly placed, but they are also just an entrance into a whole other community that is exactly like them. So I think, yes, I did work with Jane and Jody and they're phenomenal and very helpful and informative and incredibly welcoming. But then you get on campus and it is the exact same way. I don't know what just like radiates out of this place, but it just is a whole community.
Totally. I completely agree. I know exactly what you're talking about because I remember when I came here in the very beginning, I felt exactly the same way. I was like, man, why is everybody just so excited about everything? And then it genuinely becomes contagious because honestly, for most, I think for the first time in your life, you are genuinely surrounded by people that care so much.
And I wonder if it's because we kind of understand that everyone is connected. Your attitude, the person next to you's attitude, it all contributes towards our overall environment and our overall internal dialogue and our health. And And I think our community is just growing and kind of small, that I don't want anyone to fail. I don't want anyone to lose their way. It's like we're in this together, and we really are potentiating something bigger than any one of us individually.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay. So I love asking this question because our listeners really do appreciate that honest advice. So I'm going to ask a couple of these. What's something that you wish you knew before starting the ND program?
I tell my people that I'm giving tours to as well before they start the program. This is my advice. Get really great at taking care of yourself. Like have those foundations in place that when you get to the point where you're stressed and you're overwhelmed and you're doing more than maybe you're used to, you have those tools already built into your life of knowing how to reduce stress. Making sure that eating 3 times a day is already well within your norm, so it doesn't fall off at the first sign of stress or overload. Like they're built well into your core of who you are. And you know yourself well enough to know, okay, when I'm stressed, I feel really good going on a 15-minute walk. Like that's really rejuvenating and restful for me. Or for me, it's going and doing yoga. I love that. That is something that doesn't fall off for me now because I know myself. Even when I'm stressed, I know that if I do yoga every day, that nourishes me and that can't fall off.
Yeah.
And I think that when maybe you don't know yourself and individually what takes care of you, you might fall victim to things that seem like rest and really they're just adding extra stress to your life, like sitting and scrolling on your phone or like doing things that are kind of disguised as
mind-numbing,
and then it's not, and it's like, oh my gosh, I just wasted 45 minutes doing nothing on my phone and now I feel worse than before.
Yeah.
So that's what I always say. Slow down, focus on having those tools to really take care of yourself and learn and introspection. So when you add more on, you can always go back to that foundation of who you are.
What experiences do you recommend a prospective student to explore before enrolling?
Go shadow if you can. It was difficult for me to find a naturopathic doctor in Kansas that was taking students. So go to something similar. If you're coming to Sonoran, you'll have acupuncture in your toolbox. So go shadow with an acupuncturist. Go shadow with a functional medicine doctor that's doing similar things. I think you should dive into the conventional route. See if that is where you want to be.
Yeah.
And then I think also you can appreciate the differences if you are well educated on what's happening on the other side of things.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You should always have perspective in all of the different journeys.
Yeah.
Before you make a guaranteed selection. And I think, that plays a lot into people that come from, traditional medicine families, households that support that. I think that it can be kind of against the grain when you start critically thinking like yourself. Like, okay, I don't know. There's something missing and I want to explore that. And then that ends up becoming a love. So when you don't have that perspective, especially something like that where it's family and, maybe mom or dad's a doctor.
There's a lot of that. A lot of classmates that come from mom's a radiologist and dad's a whatever. Yeah. Actually, I know a girl who her dad's a radiologist. Mom was a gynecologist. Lots of different combinations that are like that.
And it's very important for you to take the time to shadow. Really experience it.
I want to share a story that was also pretty pivotal for me. And it was with my mom, who, bless her heart, but I think she was worried about me doing something a little against the grain, a little non-conventional, especially her not knowing much about it. She's like, oh my gosh, my daughter who wants to go do this thing that I don't know if it's right for her. Like, this isn't something within my comfort zone and my daughter wants to go do it. So she actually really pushed for me to be an MD or a DO or a PA.
Yeah. So how'd she feel about this?
She was worried for me, as any parent is, but I think it just came from, again, a lack of not really knowing what it would entail for me. She wanted me to really be sure of my choice. And I remember there was a day where, again, I want to go back home to Kansas because that's where my family is. That's where the people I love are. I want to go back to Kansas. And right now, even though there's been pretty promising efforts to get prescribing rights soon, the scope is pretty limited compared to our education. And she just really wanted me to be sure of the choice I was making of like, you're going to really have to be an advocate for yourself. And do you want to get involved in something where you kind of don't just have an easy pass like an MD or a DO might have where you just get employed by a hospital?
Yeah.
Things are a bit more simple. And she just really was wanting me to question that and be very sure of myself. And I remember like broke down and was crying and I was like, I could do that, but then I'm like missing out on what I know is right for me and where I know my path is. And just because it's not conventional doesn't mean that I can deny what I know to be true, that like, this is what I need to do. And I have that desire to progress things. And I have that inclination to want to be a bit more business savvy and maybe have the freedom to own my own business and practice the way that I want to and have this whole scope of modalities I've been trained in that I wouldn't get in a conventional training set. And like, I could go and be a DO or an MD and then train after my education in the things that I'm really passionate about. That doesn't make any sense. The things I'm passionate about, I want my foundation to be prevention. I don't want to self-study that on the side. So that was kind of a difficult time for me to really have to stay true to what I know was meant for me.
That's so powerful. And your mom kind of pushing you to really, truly explore so that you can stand in a firm place of knowing this is it. I know that for a fact because I've checked out all of the options is incredibly important. And that's really sound advice to give to future students is there's going to be times where you're going to question your capabilities, but your soul tie, your draw to, fulfill this purpose within you doesn't really change. It's pretty firm.
And I think you shouldn't be scared to look at the reality of what kind of being a more forefront person in this profession, what that really looks like. And for me, I've learned to really become passionate about that. And I'm even more driven because I'm like, I can make real change in a whole system. And I think that that's really powerful, but I don't think you should be scared to look at the reality of that. You're not only an employee, this is what you do, but like you stand for something when you are in this type of medicine. It's integrated into your life, into who you are, really into how people will think about you. And so you really just have to show up every day as your best self and be willing to educate and share what you know.
Very good. Is that who you are, your character? Are you kind of a trailblazer and do things, I guess, a little differently than most?
I think that I just have a few things in my life that I feel very certain about. I'm pretty normal fronting for being a little different.
Was Sonoran a contributor to that, or were you that way before?
I think I was always sneakily like that. Again, I'm very normal fronting for being a little bit different. And I think that pretty much encompasses me.
Do you feel like this kind of gave you the confidence to talk about it,
the uniqueness?
That,
I'm still learning to be certain in what I know. And this is a practice of that. I'm the youngest sister, so that really impacts not being looked at as a baby sister. I struggle with that. And I didn't know that I did until really recently in my life. It's like, okay, everyone's in their kind of professional settings. Like I need to buckle up and be sure about what I know. And I'm not a little girl in my family and I'm going to be a doctor someday.
That's so cool.
Need to be able to articulate myself well and stand my ground. Another experience that I've had where I felt like I really knew I was in the right place. In the first few years, it was actually more getting towards the clinical side of the education. I was doing pap smear. And afterwards, the patient told me, she was like, I think that was one of the best pap exams I have ever had. It just meant so much to me because, that's a sensitive exam to have done and no one looks forward to that. Just felt really honored that she felt safe in my care. And I think it just really highlights that the way that you approach people and the way that you handle the interaction on an interpersonal level is so important, as well as making sure that you're holding yourself to a very high standard of having the clinical skills. It was just really encouraging to have that feedback from a patient of, hey, someone trusts me to have their care in my hands. And I think that that's a beautiful, profound thing that meant a lot to me and gave me a lot of confidence.
Good. That's awesome. And you get so much experience in clinicals. And I know you know this, but I guess I'm telling the listener, you're going to have a lot of opportunity to kind of try it before you buy it in different types of experiences and also gain that human to human conversation style. And you're going to learn from a lot of very unique physicians. They're going to teach you tricks of the trade and ways to kind of read your patient and how do I talk to this person? You're the physician, you're the healer, but you're also the teacher. So you have to be able to, one way or another, explain and break it down, know how to ask questions, know how to answer them. And people are not necessarily immediately equipped with that skill.
It's a skill that needs practice. And I mentioned I was raised by two people in education. And so that was another factor of I want to teach people.
Yeah.
And I want that to be an integral part of what I'm doing every day. And I think that this profession allots the time for that. And it brings in the right people who they're open for that. They want that. And that was another thing that was a big, big draw for me.
Do you feel like that's missing in traditional medicine today?
Yeah, they just don't have the time for it. And it's not in their education to the same extent as we have.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where, if you have a motivated patient, that's where the real difference is made. If they can understand what they need to do and what changes they need to make, I think that that is where you can get some very profound results. And I think in our conventional system, we just kind of assume that that's not what patients want. Or again, it's a combination of assuming that's not what they want. They're coming in for me to fix it for them, or just time restraints.
Yeah, very true. Okay, so I have a kind of a deep question. If you could go back and talk to yourself the day before you started, day one, what would you say?
It's a great question. I think I would tell myself to slow down and really plant myself in where I'm at, be present, really connect with the people around me, and get ready to make great connections because they're out there waiting for you. And I have the tendency to go through things very, very fast. I want to get my work done. I want to dial in and get it done. And I'm very business forward. And I think that I'm learning, and the earlier I would have known this, the better. But, take a breath and look at the amazing people around you and really be present with them and be present with the experience because it's going to go really fast.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Okay. Are you ready for rapid fire? Okay. Alrighty.
Let's do it.
I'm going to ask you a quick question.
Okay.
And then you just give me your answer. One word, 2 word, whatever. We'll just do this real quick before we wrap up. But I think it's just kind of fun to hear what the students have to say. So, okay. Favorite class so far?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I've taken like 7,500. I love acupuncture.
Okay.
But I want to say anatomy too.
Oh, I know. That's a hard one.
I'll say those two. Anatomy and acupuncture.
Okay. Your go-to study fuel?
Coffee. So much coffee. But now I'm switching to a matcha in the afternoon.
That's good.
It has L-theanine and I'm mixing it up, but I'm a coffee girl.
Okay. What's your favorite study spot on campus?
The garden. The garden's magical. It's the best place.
That's so true. I love going through there.
Our medicinal garden is taken care of by registered herbalists, and they are phenomenal, and they know things about the plants that, of course, I haven't gotten to, or they're just so informative. And if you sit out there and they see you like having interest in one of the plants, they'll come over and teach you all about it and its properties and mechanism of action, what it's used for, and they're just wonderful.
It's so fun.
Yeah. In one of our classes, botanical medicine making, you will learn how to harvest from our medicinal garden and then extract the constituents that you need for the certain action in the class. So you'll learn how to like wildcraft. It's very cool. Very cool.
That sounds amazing. Okay. One word to describe naturopathic medicine.
Expansive.
I love that. One thing a future student should not stress about.
Where to live. That is like the number one question. Where to live. And we're located in such a central location that you could go to Tempe, Gilbert, Phoenix, Mesa, Scottsdale. You have so many safe places to live right within 10 minutes of the school. I majorly stressed about that coming from Kansas, and I wish I would have not. And here, people like don't even want to talk to you until you're ready to move in right then. And I'm a girl that I was like 6 months in advance trying to figure that out. And I wish I would have just, relax. I can figure it out a month before.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of options.
Totally. That's great advice, actually. Because I get a lot of those questions from those coming from out of town, and they want a list, and I give them a list and I say, listen, this list is going to evolve by the time you get here in a year. I promise you that. So cool. Keep a finger on the pulse, but you're probably not going to make a sign on the dotted line deal until probably a couple weeks before you get here.
I thought that is crazy to me. I guess that's just how
it moves.
Works.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to share, talk about any stories that were really important to you that you wanted to share with, the listeners, the future students that are tuning in, or even, the family members that might be trying to learn more about this?
Get ready to be a trailblazer. We need more of those. I think that we don't realize how small our community is. This maybe isn't an updated number, but the last I heard, there's only like 8,000 of us practicing doctors. It's a small community.
Yeah.
So lean into it, network with other doctors, and get ready to kind of, like I said, be a trailblazer and lead us forward. We need people like that.
You just made me think of this. Is it frustrating the amount of misunderstanding of what it is that you are and the credibility.
Yes. Honestly, yeah, it is frustrating.
Yeah.
But you can't get lost in the frustration because then you close the lines of communication.
Yeah.
You know, it's not them being bad or against what you're doing. I don't know why it is so controversial. I think, again, when you have the person-to-person conversation, most people are surprised about what we learn and how much better our patients get and the methods that we're using and the evidence behind them. They're surprised in a positive way that it just takes kind of not letting your ego get in the way of connecting with others and sharing what we're doing, because it's really, really important. But yes, the amount of misinformation is just completely wild.
Do you think that had you continued going the safer route, maybe not going this way?
It was just completely misaligned with who I am and what I want my lifestyle to be.
Yeah. You'd regret it.
I'd regret it. And it being in any form of medicine takes over your life. And I don't want to work 70 hours a week.
I don't feel like there's enough work-life balance.
The work-life balance and really who I am and what I believe in, I would think I would have been limited in giving my patients access to the type of care that I really, truly believe is best for them, especially in a primary care setting, which that's what I'm passionate about.
And we know there is a massive deficit in primary care practitioners.
And then you have a whole program dedicated to people who that is their passion is primary care. Like they're in school because that is where they want to be, primary care. Seeing them annually or biannually, having that relationship, forming those healthy habits, prevention. Like primary care is the space for us.
Yeah. You know, this has been such a great conversation, Avery. I really appreciate you being here. I think hearing directly from students like yourself that have had enough time spent in the program where you really know what you're looking at here. And you know for sure this is your path. You've laid out the foundation for sacrifice and uniqueness and how you can apply this and marry it with you, your personality, your drive, your passion, the direction you see yourself. And at this point in the game, you have advice to offer. So that is why, I love calling on students like you, because your journey is very valuable to those that are trying to navigate the waters of, is this the right path for me? What is it going to look like? So for those that are listening, that are curious about this path, what would you encourage them to do next?
I encourage you to kind of look at your life from the end backwards. And at the end of your life, when you're 80 years old, what do you want to look back and see that you've done for people? You want to treat people, you want to be in the healthcare space. What kind of relationships do you want to be able to have with those patients? What kind of work-life balance do you want? When you're sitting across from someone, how much time are you spending with them? What kind of things are you diving into? Do you want to dive into their family and emotional life? Do you want to dive into their diet? Do you want to dive into their sleep? Very important. Do you want to talk about those things in depth and really know them as a whole entire person? Is that the relationship that you're wanting?
Yeah.
And if that's true for you, then don't cancel this out of fear. And just, be true to who you are and you'll land in the right place.
Yeah, that's a very good piece of advice. Stop and think about the legacy you want to leave behind. What kind of change do you want to make? And a lot of people, I don't think, go into the idea of like, I want to change the world. But sometimes that's the after effect of really a well-positioned person in their life and totally in tune with their purpose. I think that just kind of happens.
Yeah.
You change a lot of people's lives, no matter what, through interaction. So really, really helpful advice. I appreciate you being here, Avery, so much. I'm so excited to watch you walk across the stage here pretty soon before you know it.
Crazy.
What do you want to do?
So after school, I do want to apply for residency. And then my dream is to open a primary care practice.
Love it.
I would like to go back to Kansas. I am prepared to be involved in getting us prescribing rights in Kansas. I'm totally stoked to get involved with that. But that is my dream. Go home to Kansas and treat entire families. I am fascinated with the whole lifespan and how health requirements and needs change throughout the entire lifespan. And that is just where I'm meant to be.
So for listeners, is there anything that they can do to help with getting, on the advocacy side?
Yes.
So for you, you're involved in Kansas. So let's talk about Kansas specifically. As a person, how are you reaching out because you have access as a training physician, a learning physician, or are you reaching out and being a part of this advocacy as just a regular person?
The way that I got in contact with kind of the political legislative side of this is I got in contact with the president of the Board of Naturopathic Medicine in my state. And through that, she funnels to me the efforts that are going on, the resources I can share, and just really spreading the word in your community. That is huge.
Okay.
And contacting your representatives. If there are active bills that are being processed, representatives, they're great, but they can't know everything if they don't have someone to talk to about it. So I think having a person, a constituent showing interest and passion about this is huge.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be a doctor in training. You don't have to be anyone specific. Just if you're passionate about it, reach out to your representatives, reach out to your board to see if you can get in contact with someone and get involved.
Yeah. Okay. So I will drop links in the description for this podcast for you to be able to locate your state's representatives to determine how you can effectively be a part of the change. Here in Arizona, we're kind of the trailblazers, the template state. So we've worked the problem. We've come up with great solutions that are successfully effective and working. So we'll definitely drop the link down below in the description so that you can pursue how you can be an active participant in the advocacy of expanding the reach, expanding the access, not only for yourself and for your community, but for our physicians who are trained to be able to do much more than what they're allowed to do right now.
Yeah.
So
that's another reason why it's great to train in Arizona. You are getting the broadest scope and the highest level of training possible.
Yeah, definitely.
I hope that this was reaching the right student who needs to hear this.
Thank you again so much, Avery. Really, really appreciate being here.
Yeah, this was fun.
Thank you so much for joining us today for this episode of Sonoran Stories podcast with admissions. The stories and conversations coming up this season are inspiring, honest, and so full of wisdom, and I cannot wait for you to hear them. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any more, and leave a rating, share it with someone who might be exploring a future in integrative healthcare. I'm your host, Courtney Badowski, and this has been another episode of the Sonoran Stories podcast. I want to welcome you to the Sonoran community, and I'll see you next episode.